January 24th, 2026. Well, it looks like we're all going to be hit with some pretty bad weather here over the weekend. So, uh, depending on where you are, but certainly a good part of the country is going to be. So, wish everybody the best in this whole thing. But I'll go on with where we are here. A lot of things are going on. I guess one thing is to address is just a little update on what we've been discussing for some time is this whole Greenland thing. And although the final result hasn't been hammered out yet, I think based on a variety of statements, including what Donald Trump, President of the United States, has said, and also the NATO people have said, it looks like my general attitude turned out to be correct. Even they eventually came to my point of view. I think that we don't need to annex, buy, or otherwise acquire the entire territory of Greenland as a sovereign territory of the United States in order to achieve our ballistic missile defense and rare earth minerals goals. Instead, it looks like where we're going now is something more reasonable, which would fit into the context of the 1951 treaty, in which case we will have the ability to deploy our Golden Dome defense system whenever that's ready for deployment in Greenland. The other thing that's kind of noted here, though, is this has been turned into a kind of an all-Arctic frontier thing, which I guess would stretch all the way from Alaska on one side to Finland on the other side, and would include Greenland. Of course, one of the big issues in the whole thing, of course, is Canada, because that's the largest American, frontier in that area. So, and of course, the Canadian Prime Minister has been acting up and making deals with China and so forth, because he's kind of upset about all the economic hurt that Trump has put on Canada since he's been in office. So, that is kind of where that is coming from, I believe. So it looks like nothing too dramatic, no invasions, no breakup of NATO, nothing else will happen. At least unless somebody changes their mind. And right now, that looks to be where we're heading. He did have some, let's say, a rather insulting tone to our European friends over there, but I guess that maybe, well, I don't know what that means. This I don't understand entirely, but whatever. So that's kind of the way so it looks like we've dodged that whole thing, and most of the political blowback. Obviously, the Democrats are going to make hay out of a variety of things, but that's typical. So if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. And also, you can follow me on Rumble, so I post the videos there as well. So moving on to other topics, of course, on the other aspect of the meeting in Europe is that Zelensky came and made a variety of comments in which he pretty much insulted everybody, from Trump to the Europeans, the Russians. Pretty well took on everybody, it looks like, and he seems to think everybody's just not living up to what they should be doing. Meanwhile, of course, in the actual war, the Russian attack on the Ukrainian electric grid is continuing full scale and is putting the amount of power and light that the Ukrainians have at real risk. And in many areas is either collapsed or on the verge of collapse. Although they're doing their best to keep it going, but in the process they're overrunning the endurance of their equipment, and there may be necessity to shut it down in order to prevent a malfunction, if you will. So that's not looking too good. On the other hand, our team is, we're going to have a meeting now with Putin to present him with the 20-point plan that had been hammered out between Zelensky and Trump, to see how that's going to go. Wickoff is going to be there along with Kirshner. And meanwhile, I think there's a meeting going on in the Middle East between the military of Russia and the military of Ukraine to work on the terms for what the agreement would be in terms of actual military positions, I guess, and so forth. What kind of withdrawals whatever would have to happen to make this any kind of peace plan actually be implemented. So are we on the verge of a peace settlement in this long fought out war as it approaches the fourth year here in about a month in February, or is this just another false hope? Um, Meanwhile, there have been some seizures of ships that are associated with the Ghost Fleet, or what you want to call it. And it's unclear why these ships would be in going into Venezuelan waters, given that the U.S. Navy is present and is seizing ships. So, but nonetheless, these kind of mistakes have been made, let's say, and they're ongoing. So we'll see if we're going to get to an end on this or not. Meanwhile, the ongoing fracas in Minnesota is continuing, with both sides kind of throwing their accusations around, and the protests are continuing. And I've heard some talk about there's going to be like a day off that's being proposed. I'm not sure if it's happened yet, which would allow more people to go out and protest even more in the cold. So that will have to be seen. Some evidence has come out on the shooting, which is being spun a little bit as bad for our ICE agent. However, in my opinion, it still won't lead to any kind of prosecution. Essentially, what apparently happened is, and this is what can happen in these kind of shootings, is that there's kind of like, I mean, look how fast this whole thing occurred within like just a second or two, right? What you have is a situation where there's a decision that they're in danger and they decide to shoot, and then there's a time when you make the decision it's time to stop shooting. In between, they're just kind of squeezing the trigger on these semi-automatic pistols, and that can all go off in like a second or so. And so one of the three wounds, and probably the last one, apparently hit her somewhat where on the temple. I don't know if it's at a 90-degree angle, which would seem worse, or it's more just glazing in kind of at an angle. That I've not heard, but the left is trying to make this out to being, okay, yeah, you've got your unjustified shooting, because presumably by that time she wouldn't have been a threat anymore, even though she'd already hit the guy earlier. So I don't know. They'll see how that goes, but that's something that's come up, so we should be aware of it. I still think that only the feds aren't going to prosecute their guy for this, because these sort of incidents, do occur in many police encounters, from the local police all the way up to federal agents. There are these kind of events that occur, and usually they generally don't rule against the police officer unless you have a very biased environment politically. So that's something we'll have to kind of keep an eye on. And the other thing that's coming up here on a little positive note here is I guess the first launch window for the Artemis II space flight, I believe, will be coming up in February the 6th, which isn't that far away, less than 2 weeks now. And whether it gets off on time or we go through those normal kind of things where you have a hold because of weather or some technical issue or not, but it looks like maybe this will be our first human flight beyond Earth orbit since, what are we going back to Apollo 17, I guess, right? So that'll be something to look forward to on a positive note. And so I'll be wrapping this up for now. And as always, be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.